Help protect us from racism and xenophobia by becoming an I Love Black People ambassador today. Join on iloveblackpeople.com. No matter where you are in the world, join us today and get access to the I Love Black People network. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.
Greetings to another wonderful episode of I Love Black People. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey and allowing us to share this time together. And I'm so excited. And you know, the last episode kind of got queued up and set up for this episode where I made sure everybody knew and have been told that I've been invited back to Tuskegee, the university I started at, that I came of age, and I was invited back to speak at the Charter Day Homecoming Convocation. And it's a huge honor. I'm so blessed that Dr. Morris thought enough of me to invite me to speak and be a keynote. And I just, with all those things and all the love in my heart for Tuskegee University, 1881, Booker T. Washington, it just felt so good to be recognized by your alma mater. And that being said, one of the things that we're working on right now is actually setting up a leadership endowment fund at Tuskegee. So for those who don't know, and again, check the episode out, but I talked about my background as a mechanical engineer who ultimately finished university at Howard University on the hilltop, capstone. But I started in the pride of the swift going south at Tuskegee University. And after, again, just some of the best years of my life, we had a student protest, and then I was kicked out of school. And all these things I'm telling you about happened 30 years ago. So all these things happened in 1993. It's now 2023. Maybe someday in the future, maybe another 50 years from now, that'll date the episode. And people are like, wow, back in 2023. Well, back in 1993, I was a student at Tuskegee, SGA president, Student Government Association president. Fast forward, I've had a very blessed life, and I live in gratitude. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned throughout this life is that all kind of things happen. And at the end of the day, my father taught that whatever happens, again, be accountable. So, whatever the consequences are, be able to accept the consequences of your actions. With that being said, I've had amazing opportunities, great things happen. I had bad things happen. I went bankrupt, I lost family and friends. Just as this journey has been all the journey all y'all listening have been through. All the things that you've been through, I've been through. And I say the moment I left Tuskegee, those events helped shape my life. I oftentimes have people say, what do you regret? Well, I probably regret a lot of things. With that being said, regretting probably doesn't help much. But with that being said, it also, I've learned how to take a lot of these bad situations and turn them into lemonade. I think they talk about the lemons in the lemonade. And to be surrounded by so many amazing people that have made my life what it is, to be able to give back to Tuskegee is amazing. One of the things I do every year now, going on 7 years, is we have a Black Blockchain Summit at Howard University. And I see that as an event with the School of Engineering that we do to give back. We actually have been, recognized by Time Magazine, Wired Magazine, like so many periodicals, Forbes, for the work. But that is something I feel as a contribution and a way to give back to Howard for what it did for me. And as I was thinking of the things that needed to be done for Tuskegee, I'm like, wow. And, even looking at prime time, a lot of people talk about what Coach Prime did at Jackson and what he should have done. And I think oftentimes a lot of those points that were brought up about HBCUs and what should be done, it always to me came back to us as graduates of HBCUs. What are we doing? Even when we talk about philanthropic support, philanthropists often, look at what, the actual, beneficiaries of the university have done to give back as they decide or determine what they're going to do. And as many of you know, oftentimes HBCUs and the way alums give back is not the same as many other universities. PWIs, what is it? PWIs is probably white institutions. I'm probably getting that wrong, but predominantly, thank you, predominantly white institutions. And these HBCUs though are amazing. And I think sometimes we don't talk about it, but again, I really was like a first generation college student. My dad did go to college ultimately through the GI Bill, but it wasn't like he graduated from high school and went to college. He actually worked for years and got a degree, and then he went through the military again and got a master's degree in information systems. So my father ended up being very accomplished academically and was in the Air Force. He was a computer analyst in war games, and he had a son that ended up being, of course, anti-war, and even had a full ROTC scholarship, ROTC scholarship in the Air Force at Tuskegee. The actual, I think the Air Force commandant that was there was stationed at the same Air Force base as my family, and his wife used to babysit my brother and sister. So we had a great relationship, and he had a full scholarship ready to go, and I didn't take it. And my dad never forgot or never forgave, but things worked out good enough. And you just never know these connections. Even Dr. Benjamin Payton, who was the president, who kicked me out of the university, his sister was my high school principal, vice principal. I think it was Denise Pageant. So, when the book gets written, it's going to be so amazing how all this stuff is intertwined and how life can be what it is and turn out with a lot of lemonade that's sweet, got a little tartness to it, but it turns out to be very refreshing and amazing. And I'm so, like I said, thankful for all the things and all the people and experiences in my life. And with that being said, I want to just make an announcement that we're literally going to be launching. We're launching a leadership endowment fund for Tuskegee students. And again, the reason why Tuskegee University, has been amazing is definitely the products and the students that come from there. And I alluded to the stories that can be told from our lives. And what better person to recognize from Tuskegee is Ralph Ellison. And Ralph Ellison, a prolific writer, a novelist and a critic, and just transformed so much throughout I'd say the 20th century. His impact and footprint is very solid, and a Tuskegee alum, and he's most known for his book Invisible Man. And not to, I definitely encourage everybody to read the book, but it was a book I didn't read until after I was kicked out of school. And in the book Invisible Man, the lead character is actually kicked out of school. And Ellison's critique of leadership, Black leadership, American leadership is so, he'll take you back in time. And I think one of the things sometimes gets lost with history, people take it out of context. They'll take the actions and activities of people, like someone like a Booker T. Washington. His ability to raise funds from Southern plantation owners as well as Northern industrialists while being in Macon County, Alabama, is phenomenal. And if you put him in context, there's probably no one in our community, or very few that you could probably cite, that had his ability to leverage these different worlds and build a university where the students made the bricks and made the buildings with those bricks, and really the whole word of self-determination. He really captured that in the Institute. And I know we always talk about the real HU and versus the Institute, but Tuskegee, Booker T went to Hampton, and Tuskegee was an institute meant to, again, develop brothers and sisters in a way that they could effectively live their lives. And I'm not going to say we need to be institutionalized, but if you were coming out of chattel slavery, once removed, or someone like Booker T. Washington who was enslaved, you probably do need some institutional help. And I think sometimes today, as we talk about our, changes, getting going through Jim Crow segregation or American apartheid, dealing with what our generation, the Gen Xers, the prison industrial complex, AIDS, crack cocaine, automatic weapons in the community meant for war. And we made it through all those things without a timeout, without anyone giving us an opportunity to kind of heal and go through some institute to try to get our minds right. Of course, those of us who, found God, found Jesus, found Allah. There's definitely some a place to go that's safe in religion and spirituality. But as it relates to us as a community or as a generation being given the opportunity to kind of like take a time out after going through so much trauma, that never happened. And that's not happened to us collectively and even individually as we go through life and our trials and tribulations. It could be getting kicked out of school, a divorce, a bankruptcy, any incarceration. All these things happen, and we got to pick ourselves up and put our face on as if everything's fine. And oftentimes, we're dealing with so much trauma that one incident could drive us crazy. And people used to talk about the paycheck to paycheck thing, but literally, many of us are one incident away from losing our minds. And so I have to make a jokes about being cuckoo bird, but after going through some of these incidences, it can make you a little out there. So with that being said, I think the thing that we see as being important as a legacy of Tuskegee is actually taking the concept of leadership. And Booker T. Washington, of course, was an amazing example of leadership. But even his succession plan, he had Robert Russa Moton, who was his successor, and he was amazing. He was somebody who expanded. They had the builder. They said Booker T. Washington was the founder. Moton was the builder. Many of the buildings that are on Tuskegee's campus were built under Robert Russa Moton. And I don't know if it's the expander, but Frederick Patterson was the president after Robert Russa Moton. And I think Russa's daughter was married to him. It was very, when you start reading the history of these Black institutions, the world gets super small. And he was Patterson was the one who started the veterinary school at Tuskegee, as well as started the United Negro College Fund. He saw how the fundraising prowess of Tuskegee oftentimes eclipsed by large measures many other smaller private Black colleges. And he thought it'd be better if they worked together in some ways to build something that will allow them to attract money that then could be divided. And then after Patterson was Luther Walker, President, was it President? Oh my gosh, it just escaped me. But and then after him was Patterson. So Luther Foster, and these were, again, all these presidents had their leadership qualities. Some were better than others. My favorite president is probably for this generation is Dr. Charlotte Morris, who's the current president, and she's loved Tuskegee so long, and she's been committed. I think one of the things we lose sight of when we talk about giving back to universities, we talk about giving back, raising an endowment for $1 million. Some people give a lifetime. And when you start thinking about the differences in giving money back and visiting for homecoming, and those who have given their lives, who sacrificed, and again, even like a Dr. Morris is a woman, the second woman president of Tuskegee. Many of these universities haven't had women presidents, even though the populations of historically Black colleges have been dominated by women but for decades. The fact that those administrations aren't led by women speaks to something that still occurs, and that's called misogyny, sexism. Again, when you're talking about performing, you want the best. To get caught up on gender is not only unfortunate, but it actually undermines our progress. So to have a very capable woman in the position of leadership at Tuskegee is a no, amazing woman that it's something inspirational. And I think we should be able to be clear in our communities that we have so many women who are dominating. And if they can't get opportunities in a racist, misogynistic corporate America, they definitely should have the opportunity to lead and show us the way at our most critical, important institutions. And those would be our institutions of higher learning. Even when we talk about the education issue in the community, uh, Tuskegee started off as a normal school. The purpose of that school was to actually teach teachers to teach in the Black communities. Because again, as many of you know, we had went through, a horrible time for hundreds of years in the United States where it was unlawful to teach people of African descent how to read. And that being said, there was so much to overcome in that period. So when Booker T. Washington founded Tuskegee in 1881 and the end of Civil War, let's say 65, you're really looking at a very short window. And if you really think about the issues that we face today, where you have large, issues of illiteracy. Still, we have problems with poverty and lack of homes and shelter. But we had some of those same problems after the end of World War II during Reconstruction. But our people didn't go around killing each other. So, when I hear people talk about the violence that we're experiencing, some of that is being introduced in a way that we have to come up with real solutions now. And just like previous generations came up with solutions to the problems they face, I think we also have to hold ourselves accountable. And that's why it's important that we value those people like a Dr. Morris who give their lives to making those institutions that are very critical to our community better. And when you look at a school like Tuskegee, it's in Macon County, Alabama. And I think about Coach Prime being in Jackson, Mississippi. you know, Alabama and Mississippi are still in the South, and Tuskegee is still in Alabama. And we call it the pride of Swift going south because of the South was and still continues to grow. But I think what's important for us to get that Booker T. Washington talked about was cash your bucket down where you are. And what he said was no matter where you are, the South, North, East, West, you know, get the most out of those circumstances. And I think what you see with the people who sacrifice to give and continue to give to Tuskegee their lives by being professors, administrators, I think is so important. And that being said, though, that doesn't mean we don't hold them accountable. And I think part of this is something that we have to do better with and this is about leadership and how we utilize this leadership endowment fund to make sure young people understand how to be accountable. We can't just allow the goodwill of the university or organization to be exploited and not being developed. And I think it's important that what Tuskegee has been able to show in ways that people don't talk about, like, again, the Tuskegee Airmen didn't just find themselves in Tuskegee. There was so many places that they could have had the airmen, but Tuskegee represented a special place of like Black incredible success in spite of whatever the situation we found ourselves in. And that spirit inspired, again, the Tuskegee Airmen and many other amazing folks that came through Tuskegee and developed other examples based on the Tuskegee model, the Tuskegee, the shiny place on the hill. And what we're going to do with our Leadership Institute is literally use this endowment to put $1 million that we now will be able to use the interest that comes from there to continue the funding of activities. Now, again, $1 million will give us maybe around $50,000 a year. But with that being said, it's not just the money. Not everybody can contribute financially, but you can contribute your time. That's our most valuable resources. So with a lot of these students, they're still students. I know people say students have changed and how people are. I'm in a fraternity. People say the young folks are different. I think, young people will continue to change. That's fair. but they also have some of the same needs, and that coming of age is something that requires some guidance and support. And I think in many ways, being able to come back through this leadership endowment and give your time and share with the young brothers and sisters your experiences so they can make new mistakes. That's the focus of this endowment. This leadership endowment is not just about raising $1 million. It's literally about raising our voices to be relevant in the lives of our students at Tuskegee University. And I pray that this becomes a model that other people use. Again, I'm talking about Jackson State and the inspiration of Coach Prime, how someone who's very successful lend his reputation and his resources to a wonderful university. I think those who love alma mater, love Mother Tuskegee, we all give back in our own ways. So to be able to collaborate and work together on a leadership endowment, I think that's just one more way to show our strength and our ability when we come together, how amazing we are. And I think when we came together on campus and we were with some of the best of a generation, Tuskegee is not just a university. It's iconic. When you say Tuskegee, people clear. So, with that we've been given so much of a responsibility to uphold, to be able to contribute to it through an endowment, $1 million endowment that we can allow to, again, generate these funds so that we can continue to give back to the university, I think is incredible. And we've made sure that we reached out to, again, the vice president uh, of university development, Philip Howard, been super amazing. Uh, to Rod Robertson, somebody who was the student government president after me, definitely been super awesome. He put me in contact with Sister Grace, who's currently the SGA president at Tuskegee, and young people still doing amazing things. I think one of the things we lose sight of is that we're building and each generation stands on the shoulders of the previous one, and we have no generational chauvinism. We don't think there's one generation that did it all. Every generation out of relative obscurity must fulfill its destiny or betray it. So that's every generation has something to contribute, and it's up for us to find out and figure it out what our individual way to contribute is and fulfill that contribution. So I'm not using that as a metaphor to support this $1 million endowment fund, but definitely you please look out. We're going to be talking about this endowment fund throughout the year to make sure that people contribute. Uh, we have a goal of getting there in less than 5 years, but if we can get there in 1 year, that'd be fine. With your support, we can make it happen, and that those again funds would be used for us to have programs that help our young people understand what leadership is about before they graduate. And one of the things that made us focus on leadership is that there's a lot of energy and time spent on athletes. Again, I keep talking about Coach Prime, and he's dealing with a particular population of our brothers and sisters who are in sports. And there's so much to be learned in sports and learning for, like I said, how to work with people, group dynamics, so much. The winning and dealing with loss. There's so many opportunities to develop young people through sports. Well, what about those that don't get into sports? How about the other extracurricular activities like the debate team or some of these community service teams? I mean, groups, as well as a student government association. And what we thought about was that when we look back at our college experiences, and this is even talking to friends of mine who didn't even attend Tuskegee, went to other universities, other HBCUs, we really, when we start having these conversations, we say, what was it that really made a difference in our success? And many times it wasn't a particular book we read. Many times it wasn't a particular class. I'm a mechanical engineer. I had statics book. I had, differential equation books. I had dynamics books. I had fluids, a host of books. But when we look back, many of us reflect, it actually was many of the things that actually happened outside the classroom. It's those incredible experiences we had with each other outside of the class, the things that happen, even registration, dealing with that, trying to overcome obstacles of getting in school. Again, homecoming, being a place to reunite and meet new people. again, going to different graduations, even when you weren't graduating, and crying and feeling so good for your friends, and being a part of these experiences were critical. Like, they were transformational. And those relationships that we gathered from those universities. So again, at a school like Tuskegee, again, some of my best opportunities in life came from my peer group that went to Tuskegee. And you maybe your first opportunity might come from someone outside of your generation, someone older. But after that, many of your opportunities are going to come from friends that might be working someplace else or doing something. Say, hey, I went to school with this guy. He's pretty good. This sister's pretty great. So, generationally, I think it's important that we, respect the fact that so much of what we appreciate in life, it comes from our experiences in college and from our relationships from college, not just the actual curriculum. And if we can, by creating a leadership program endowment, we'll be able to actually elevate that experience and enrich it in a way that they'll get even more out of those extracurricular activities than we did. And we want to leave the world better than we found it. So if we look at SGA at Tuskegee and the extracurricular activities that other student organizations are doing, and we can give back to that so that their experience is tenfold better than ours, then this job well done. And they deserve it. It's full circle for many of y'all. This is our time. We got to make it happen now. And I'm so pleased to be able to share all of this with you. And please come check us out at Tuskegee on Sunday, October 15th in the chapel, 9:30. We're going to make sure if you can't make it, we're going to get it recorded and make sure we share it with you. And as I always leave it, I am because we are. Thank you all. And thank you, Mother Tuskegee.
Help protect us from racism and xenophobia by becoming an I Love Black People ambassador today. Join on iloveblackpeople.com. No matter where you are in the world, join us today and get access to the I Love Black People network.